In this episode, we're going to show you how to set up your own environment that will promote you to explore and learn about the operating system in a hands-on way. So in this episode, we're going to show you an installation and how to install CentOS. Now, CentOS can be found for free at centos.org. Over there, you'll find the ISO file, which will let you set up your own instance of a CentOS virtual machine. Their very minimal system requirements are 2 GB of RAM, 10 GB of hard disk, and a 2 GHz processor, which is common for most modern-day computers. So moving forward in the lab, we're going to show you how to install CentOS so you can get your own Linux distribution up off the ground. In this episode, we talked about how to install CentOS. Installing CentOS is really simple, and moving forward in the lab, we're going to show you a practical step-by-step instruction on installing and using CentOS. Hi, in this episode of the Linux course, we're going to be installing CentOS. So CentOS is a Red Hat-based distribution. You can find the ISO files at centos.org. Here, you can see that this is a community-driven, free software effort focused around the goal of providing a rich base platform for open source communities to build upon. So CentOS is a community enterprise operating system. That's actually what CentOS means. When you go ahead and click on the download link, you can see different versions, whether they're end of life or they're in current distribution. Currently, the version that's in rotation is version 9. You can go ahead and click on the architecture that you want and download the necessary ISO. Furthermore, if you are so interested, you can look at the release notes if you are upgrading from a previous version to really see what are the changes between CentOS 8 and CentOS 9. Once you have the ISO, you will also need a virtual machine platform. On this computer here, I'm using VMware Workstation Pro, which can be downloaded from the VMware website. Or if you more prefer to use Hyper-V or some other tool, you can also use that. So I do have my ISO file and I do have my virtual machine platform. Let's go ahead and build our virtual machine. I'll go ahead and click on Create a New Virtual Machine, and I'll choose the Custom Type Build, where I can choose the necessary options regarding the type of architecture and the hardware that is being used. I'll click Next, and I'll click Next again. And here for Guest Operating System installation, I'll go ahead and make sure that CentOS Stream, I have version 9, is ready and mounted, and I'll go ahead and click Next. And to personalize Linux, you can give your personalization information. I'll make my first user administrator with the username also being administrator and provide the password that I want to use. Let's go ahead and click Next. And here we can give the virtual machine name, so I'll just call it CentOS. All right, I'll call it CentOS 01 in case we end up making more machines that can be CentOS 02 and 03 for later demonstrations. Let's go ahead and click Next. Here, you can decide on the configuration for your processor. Sometimes with really heavier operating systems, of course, you do need to bump up the processing power, but CentOS is being incredibly lightweight. We can get away with one processor and one core for a total of just one processor core being used. Here for the memory, you can see that the recommended memory is just 1 GB, but just to have a better performance and to be able to use features a little bit easier, I'm going to bump this up to 4 GB on my machine. What's next is the network type. This is how the virtual machine will get its IP address. So NAT simply means it is going to use the IP settings on my host machine, which happens to be my computer, and using a network address translation, build out its connection settings. For I/O controller type, I'm choosing the recommended. And for the disk type, I will also choose recommended. If we have a existing virtual hard disk, we can make that association now with this installation. But if you don't, you can go ahead and just create a new virtual disk and identify the size that you want. For CentOS, again, this is based on a version 5 template, but you can see the requirements are really low, 20 GB. Even if I bump it up to 50, this is still arguably quite low for an entire operating system. I'm going to store this virtual disk as a single file. Should I need to copy and move this file around to anywhere else? Let's go ahead and click Next. This will be the disk that is being created on my computer. It's a VMDK or the virtual machine disk. Let's go ahead and click Next and finish by powering on my CentOS machine. And I'll walk you through the installation steps of CentOS so you can get this installation started on your side. Here we see a number of messages as the installation files are being unpacked, and we will be presented with a installation summary screen where we can make our language and keyboard settings amongst other settings before starting the installation for CentOS. All right. We should be presented with the summary installation summary screen, starting with the language settings and keyboard settings. So far, everything is looking good. Let's click Next or Continue. And here is the installation summary. So along from the left-hand side, the localization settings include your keyboard selection, your language support, and the date and time. Currently, it's set to New York time zone. We are quite close. Let's see if we can really narrow down the city that I am in. So I'm in Toronto, and I'm just going to scroll down to see if that is an option which is available. Although we're in the same time zone, maybe it will give some more accurate settings. So here it is. I've selected America's Toronto, whether or not you want network time enabled or not, and you can set your date and time formatting down here if you want a 24-hour clock or if you actually do want AM and PM. So I will actually go ahead and fix that currently to my current timing, and I'll go ahead and click on Done. Now, for the software, we can see that we are going to be selecting, or it is already selected, the server with GUI. This means that it will not just be a command line server as many Linux environments or Unix environments will have, to really, not carry that overhead of a graphic interface. However, if you're just a user, beginner learning to use Linux, a graphical user interface makes it easy to use, easy to manage. So outside of the graphical user interface, some other things you can see along the right-hand side are additional services. So based on the function of your server, you can enable things like FTP or remote desktop clients or Windows file server or whatever that server will play the role for. But you can, of course, download and configure this software separately once you are gone through a very base installation. Let's go ahead and click OK. The installation source is that virtual CD where I've mounted, so it is reading local media, and that seems to be OK. For system settings, here is the installation destination. You can see this yellow exclamation mark, which is just an alert. We are just supposed to click and click done, but you do have the option, as you see here, to add specialized or network disks or set some sort of encryption or even storage configuration should you choose to. The kdump is a feature called kernel dump. This simply creates a dump file, so when your system or your kernel crashes, you can later analyze by looking at the dump file to see what really happened. The network and host name is your network area connection. Currently, it's unknown, so this seems to just be a setting inside my VMware Workstation. Let's go ahead and fix that. Inside my virtual network editor, I'm just going to make sure that I am using a DHCP service. You might not have to do this. However, this is just to ensure that I can select an Ethernet connection. When we go ahead and connect it, it should pull an IP address, and now we are online. Our network is good to go. You can see that ENS33 is the virtual NIC, but this is that Intel NIC where you can see the full name of your NIC. You can also change your host name. So currently your host name is localhost, and this is just when you're on the network, so computers can recognize the server name and address using a host name. So this could be a FQDN or any name you want to give to your computer. I'll just skip this for now, we can later set this as well. We can see different security profiles we can select. Currently, we are not going to apply any security profiles. And finally, here in the user settings, you can see things like root password. So your root password is actually the password that you use to really manage this server. This is your very first admin level account. With this, you can make any kind of changes on the server if you are using the root account. You can optionally select this Allow Root SSH login, meaning if you are connecting to this very powerful account from SSH or from the SSH remote access, you can still access the root account. And finally, the user creation down here. We'll create our first user called administrator and give this user a password. Optionally, you can choose to make this user administrator. This will ensure that this user can also run root commands without switching to the root user. So I'll go ahead and choose that, and I'll click Done. And now all of these selections are discussed, and we are ready to install. I'll go ahead and click Begin Installation. After this installation finishes, you should see this reboot system, enable, and you will finally be prompted to reboot the system after the installation to start using CentOS. So we've let the installation complete, and now you can see down here on the bottom right, CentOS Stream is now successfully installed. We just have to reboot the system. So I'm going to hit that reboot button, and we'll go ahead and let this computer restart. Now this should bring us to the end of the lab. I'll just show you around, so if you are installing it, you can, follow along a little bit easier. Here at the login screen, you can see the login. Up is the date and time over here, and accessibility settings if you do need, to use high contrast or zoom or large text or any of these accessibility settings. I'll just go ahead and now log in. For those of you who have used any sort of Red Hat-based, distribution for Linux, this is entirely familiar then, I believe, to you. This is that tour option. I've clicked on no thanks. And over here, we can see the different applications we have access to, along with the terminal, which is direct access to the shell, or the command line, where you can type commands and make changes to the system. But you do also have a graphical interface. So, of course, you have some graphical applications, such as Firefox, files, a software hub or downloader, along with some other applications as well. So, with that being said, if you have gotten this far, congratulations, you've reached the end of the lab. I'll close my lab out here. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you in the next one.